Jesus' words, I think, are very appealing to us. Peace I leave you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give it to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. Surely those words of peace and the offer of peace are so attractive to us, and something that I think each and every person desires to have in his life. And there's an element of it that I think is the most attractive of all. He's not saying that if you learn a particular technique, if you follow some secret code, or gives us a self-help book that we can follow, or if we get ourselves into the right emotional state, if we are courageous and fearless, that we will be able to live in peace. Because I know from my own personal experience, if it depends upon me, that just isn't going to happen. That I'm not going to learn the technique, I'm not going to be courageous enough, I'm not going to know what that secret is, or won't keep it uppermost in my mind. But that is in some ways a kind of self-help realization of peace. And when it comes to the spiritual life, I'm kind of the problem, I'm not the solution. I'm not the solution to the problem of my spiritual life. It cannot rest solely in me. So Jesus is saying that this is something that he gives to his disciples, that it's a gift that they receive, and once they receive that gift, they're able to live their life in peace. So I consider myself a disciple of Jesus. I'm certainly a follower of his, proclaim him to be Lord and Savior, and dedicated to him in life. Why then don't I have peace? Why don't I live my life out of peace? How come I don't experience peace? Now, I know I'm personalizing that a lot, and I hope that your experience is much different from my own. But my guess is that most of us are often in the same boat, that we experience our life without a great deal of peace, or we experience some anxiety and fear that seems to be the opposite of the peace that Jesus promises to us. Well, I think the image of a boat, sailing in a boat, is probably a very good one that is even scriptural, since there are different scriptural images of Jesus in the boat, and that experience of being in and out of peace. I was invited recently to the opening of the yacht club, with an ambitious title to call it a yacht club, mostly sailing boats, but it was fun to go to that opening and enjoy meeting some of our parishioners there, and a nice event there. And they offered to take me sailing. Sailing can be a wonderful experience when the conditions are right, when there's just enough wind and the weather is perfect, the waters are calm. It's a lovely experience to go out sailing and to enjoy them. But inevitably, sailors find themselves when that isn't the situation. And usually when they're furthest away from their port, suddenly the storm clouds appear and the rain falls, and lightning starts to strike, the wind is erratic or too much, the waters are choppy. It's a scary situation. It feels like a very dangerous situation. In fact, it can be a very dangerous situation. And all the peace and the joy that we are experiencing in that moment disappears, and we find ourselves in a great deal of anxiety. Well, symbolically or metaphorically, this is really kind of a peace that the world gives to us. This is the peace of the world. And Jesus says, I don't give you the peace of the world. The church has always taught that peace is the fruit of justice in our life, justice being the right order of things, and that the peace that the world gives to us is something like that. When this sailing is smooth, when everything is right, we find ourselves to be at peace. When there is a just community, a just nation, a just world, a just family, and most particularly when our own life is just, when we have our own life in its right order, then we're really at peace. We find ourselves to be at peace. When that is disturbed, when the world is not just, when there is a great deal of injustice, we're not at peace. The justice, the right order of things has disappeared. Well, this is the problem, of course, is that the world is never perfectly just. It's never, even if it stays so for a few moments, it's like a river that is passing by. It never stays the same. And we can look at our world and say, well, most of the problems of the world, in fact, all the problems of the world, really come from injustice that is existing. The injustice that billions of people live in extreme poverty. Billions of people living on $2 a day. This is a horrible situation that they are living in, and we can imagine all the consequences that are evolved out of that. How they really live at peace, and how can our world be at peace when people live in such deprivation? And it's not that kind of extreme. People also live under, usually these things are tied together, terrible tyranny, where human rights are denied, the right of conscience, the right to live out their life as people see fit. This is certainly the source of war and violence that afflicts our nation, terror and the like. It's just, we're plagued by it. And there's no simple and easy solution. It's probably been the human condition since time immemorial, but it seems to be even worse. In our own nation, that we have a great deal of freedom, a great deal of material wellness. Even there, we experience the insecurity of our life and of our world, the disparity of what really exists within our world, this much crime and violence that we're afflicted with. Well, we know a long list that all of us could add to it. I was listening to a news report about the jobs report. It was encouraging about the growth of jobs, and yet they said, especially for people my age, in their 50s and their 60s, that if they're been out of work, it can be very difficult for them to find a job, especially some meaningful work, and very discouraging. I'm not sure that that's necessarily an injustice on anybody's part. It's just the conditions of our world. Jesus says that this isn't the peace that he gives to us. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't work for justice, that we shouldn't try to have a better world, or we should just kind of throw up our hands and say, it's never going to work, so just accept that terrible reality. No, we should, I think, strive to make a better world. Still, it's not the peace that Christ offers to us. He says, not as the world gives do I give it to you. Well, I think that he's giving us a much different peace, and it's a peace that comes from this relationship with the Father, that he and the Father are one. He says over and over again, especially in the Gospel of John, that who has seen me has seen the Father and I are one. I'm going to the Father, and you should rejoice because the Father and I are one. We will send the Advocate and the like. Many passages that speak about the unity between the Father and the Son. And that this, I think, was the source of his peace, that he was able to live in peace because of that relationship, because of his absolute certainty, even on the cross, even in the face of death, that God would protect him, that God would bring about good. Even if he didn't know at his human level what that would mean, that it would mean the resurrection. Still, Jesus trusted in him because of this, the unity that he had with the Father. This, I think, is the gift that Jesus gives to us. Through our baptism, through our confirmation, we are made over to the children of God. We are made over and become brothers and sisters with the Lord and find our unity with the Father. Jesus, in fact, gives us, in all of the sacraments, the divine life, that we are in union with him and therefore in union with the Father. And this should be the source of our peace. We are living in confidence of the God who loves us and saves us, who guarantees our final joy and happiness. So why not be in peace then? Why would a person not live in peace? Obviously, if we're looking for peace that is dependent upon the smooth sailing, we're going to be disappointed in that. If we're living contrary to our life, if we're living in a sinful state, we're living contrary to God's will to commit mortal sin, we're going to break that relationship with God. And we're going to suffer for that. We're going to suffer a lack of peace in our life. And then, of course, it's just, in some degree, I notice my own contradiction in this, because it relies to some degree on our choices, doesn't it? We have to be willing to give ourselves to God, to entrust ourselves to that relationship with him. And all of us, in my experiences, we hold back and we have a certain lack of trust in God, a certain lack of confidence and entrusting ourselves to the power of God. Yet, this is the relationship that God has given to us. He's given us the divine life. We really live in God, and that is the source of our joy, of our peace, of our happiness. It is ultimately